Hey, welcome to the inaugural kickoff of this podcast called Kickin It. We're going to be here discussing some things centered around the urban church planting, the urban church world. We'll talk about technology. We'll talk about just the new mindset when it comes to church planting. And I hope that as you are listening to this, it's something that you'll be able to pull away from it. But it is called Kicks and Kicking It. So I had to ask my brother, Pastor Headspeth, right away, man.
Yes,
What you rocking with on today?
Oh, I don't know what these are. I do know they dunks, I guess.
Okay.
Nike dunks. I don't know
Okay.
the name of them. But
All right. Well, and that's not important, man. So I came with some, what my kids would say, bootleg Zoom Jordan 1s, but something different.
Yeah.
I'm not really a Jordan person. I'm
Yeah.
more of a dunk and what do you call it? Uptown type of guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here. So Pastor Headspeth, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll dive right into this conversation.
Yeah. I'm Pastor Antoine Headspeth, lead pastor of Replenish Church, Charlotte, right here, of course, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Transplant from, via Los Angeles, California, via Benton Harbor, Michigan. So,
All right.
yeah, been here in Charlotte for several years now. So, yeah.
So he's been in this church planting and pastoring world for just a little bit. Let me say just a little bit.
Yeah.
So he's been around the block. He's not new to this.
Yeah.
And with that being said, we're talking about how do we break this mold in urban church planting. We've had conversations. I remember when we was going to Michigan, and we was on the plane, and we was talking about how for so long pastors will get a word and believe that if I got a word, I can go ahead and launch this church and end up running into difficulties that are not necessary.
Yeah.
But what I love about you and your wife, man, y'all jumped into this process and said, hey, let us be the forerunners. Let us be the pioneer in really changing this whole dynamic of church planting as we've done it in the past. So let me ask you, what made you, one, jump back into church planting, and then two, agree to the process that we went through?
Yeah, well, number one, I knew that God had called us to plant this church. But after having some history, we planted a church in Michigan many years ago, pastored in Michigan for about 10 years. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't want to plant a church. I say that all the time. I did not want to plant a church. If it was up to me, let me just go into a church and that needs a pastor.
Right.
I wanted to do that.
Right.
Because in my mind, I'm thinking church planting is a young man's game. I just
Come on now.
But we knew God had given us a word. And so it was important that if we're going to do it, that we had to do it the right way.
Right.
And also not do it by ourselves.
Right.
So there's a blessing in being connected to a family, having partnership, so that you're not out there by yourself, because there are a lot of things that you'll run into. And I planted a church before. I pastored 2 churches. The first one that we planted, and I remember being out there just by myself.
Yeah.
Financially, no training. And what happens is a lot of pastors, particularly African-American pastors, we get a word and we can, somebody tells us we can preach, and then you just go out there.
Right.
And what happens is you get out there and you realize it's not as easy as you thought. It takes more than just being able to preach a little bit.
Right.
So.
Right. I think that's probably one of the biggest things right there that I would say with all young pastors, and even older pastors. Like, preaching is not what grows a church.
Not at all.
And we'll dive a little bit more into that. But for so long, we believe that church growth is predicated on what you do on Sunday. And if you ever planted a church, especially in the urban content, we understand that it's not necessarily the Sunday worship gathering is the big thing that changes and causes growth. but it's about what you're doing to connect with community. How are you intertwined? Like I said, being divinely entangled in community. So
Sure.
community says, all right, you truly do care. And I may come to check out what this God that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But going back to the church plant and going back into launching and believing that it is a young man's game. The approach that we decided, we came under an agreement. We're working with Nitrogen Network, which is which is really a global church plant network that is specialized in the urban content. But what was it that caused you and your wife to say, you know what, looking at this small church, we're a small church and we'll dive into that too. Looking at this small church, let's launch out of there, because that's unheard of. In the African-American culture, we don't launch out of church. Now we have church splits, but we don't launch out of churches. And I know how our conversation went, but share with those that will take a look at this podcast and say, what was the mindset? And let's talk about what made you hesitate, because obviously, we're doing something different, right? So on both sides, we were like, "Oh, well, let me check this out," And then what was the other thing to say? All right, let me go ahead and jump into this.
Well, what made us hesitant initially is because of past history,
right?
And seeing historically, you see churches, like you said, that we see church splits.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of churches being birthed out of a mother church, if you would.
Right.
And so I was hesitant because of that part, because you want to make sure that expectations are clear and things of that nature. So that was the hesitancy. But what made me ultimately decide is, number one, I had a word from God. And, my wife and I never forget the first time, and I don't know if I told you the story, the first time we came, you didn't know we were coming.
No.
It was just, I think I told my wife the night before, I said, hey, we're going to the court.
Okay.
And she said, okay. And we went, and of course, we got a chance to hang out with you guys. As we were leaving, I'm driving down the street, and I said, I don't know what's happening here. Literally going down the street, I don't know what's happening. I said, but there's some type of connection. We're going to be with them. I don't know if we're going to join. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to be with them. So there had to be a word from God.
Right.
And then also it just made sense because we didn't want to be out here by ourselves. And one of the things that I'm telling you that blessed us, that we realized in, a little bit down the road, is that we were able to build community.
Yeah.
Because
that's huge.
For her and I, we transplants, we moved to Charlotte, and we really didn't have a lot of people we were connected to. So being a part of the core created a community of believers that we can see, talk to, check on them, check on us. And so that was the beauty of that part.
Man, just the humility and how you and your wife, and for those who don't know, he has a dynamic wife who ministers preaching as well as worship.
I've been blessed.
You've been blessed. I was sidebar trying to sneak on the worship team, but that's not going to work out. No, but you guys came to the core with just such humility and almost too much humility, because at one point I was like, man, I want to be here or what?
I was going to say that.
I was like, because it's like, I'm not going to take over anything. Where you want me to plug in? And I had this mindset like, yo, plug in. Let's get to work. And that's just how I am. I'm like, man, we agree. We heard from God. Let's move. Let's rock. That's how I was. But
and for us, we just wanted to be, again, just careful, because we wanted to help, but because sometimes people don't have the right motive. We want to be sure. We want to make it clear that our motives were, absolutely coming from the right place. And so for us, I would rather be sent than to just say, we're going to do this. So that was part of that.
They always say it's better to be asked to come to the front than asked to go to the back.
So that was our mindset.
Nah, man, but it was just a wonderful partnership as we got together, watch you guys go through the process of launching and actually growing the church. And again, one of the things when they're talking about launching out of a church and having a mother church where we're acting as a mother church, but not traditionally as it's known. Because in the not the urban, but in the suburban mindset, when we talk about a mother church is all the finance, all the resource, all that stuff. But in the urban content, we're dealing with the typical numbers anywhere between 25 to 40. So it really now becomes a mindset over membership, because the mindset is like, hey, we're going to do everything that we can, bringing resources together to help make this thing successful. What I loved about it was every time you had the interest meeting, my niece, who's I'm bragging about, she's working right now, who's done a wonderful job with the podcast and the social media. We're able to see her go to your event, posting certain things. So it may not be hard cash, but it's different resources that we're able to give to one another, so that we can see the other person prosper, instead of saying, nah, she worked for me. All she's going to do is promote me. So it's just a different mindset. Can you talk about that?
Well, that's part of the beauty of cooperation. That's part of the beauty of having partnership, is that, the mindset has to change from, you don't have to be a major church or a huge church numerically to be able to be a blessing. For an example, like even in the natural, you have a mother who is carrying a child. That child gets nourished by whatever the mother takes in. And I think that, again, it's not always about cash. Sometimes it's about just your presence. Our first word and worship service, you guys showed up, and several members came. That meant a lot. I remember your conversation, because again, my approach was based off of my history. And so I remember you saying that, listen, we're coming to support. It's going to look good. It's going to be great to have us there. And I'm thinking like, wow, I wasn't going to ask you that, because again, my history, people not receiving your heart the right way. And so again, it may not have been cash per se, but you guys' presence meant a lot. You guys pushed the push. And even other resources with, the media team being able to come out and take pictures and things of that nature. So again, there's beauty in partnership. And that you have to learn how to be able to receive, and not always, and it don't have to be from, because you can get financial help, but still not have infrastructure, still not have other trainings that may come along with somebody, because there's wisdom that we can't put a dollar on that you provide.
That's good.
So
that's good.
That's what I'm doing.
And that goes right into like changing that whole ecosystem of church planting and changing the whole culture. One of the things that I really believe that if you serve well in a ministry, there should be people that will attach to your anointing, your callings and gift. And instead of us fighting over members, we should be releasing members, And I know, I know we got a limited time, but you got to share a little bit. Like I've been in ministries where, man, they can have 19 drummers. And if they hear the drummer comes to your church, they calling up like, why are you at that church? I'm like, you got 19. I thought I was part of, I thought I served well. Why not? Go ahead.
I was talking to someone about this, like, what sense does it make as a pastor for me to have 20 elders on my team, would-be pastors? We had 300-400 members. The gospel is to be, we're supposed to multiply, duplicate. Jesus left for the sense so that the disciples can go, therefore that they can, teach, baptize according to Matthew, according to the Great Commission, Matthew 28. So we have to get ego out the way. Because it doesn't make sense to hold somebody captive when God has given you gifts. If you have pastors on your team, you have those that can lead, you have, you use drummers. So when you leave our church, we want to send you, but not send you empty-handed. Why not send you, we went through this training. Why not send you with people? Why not send you with resources so that the gospel can be preached to all nations?
I'll never understand this hoarding mindset.
It's ridiculous, and it's not biblical.
Yeah.
Because if we follow Matthew 28, that's not what Jesus did.
Come on now. Come on.
That's not what he did. He sent them forth, and he tells them to do the things that I've commanded you to do.
That's right. I always say this, that the whole purpose of gathering is for sending.
Absolutely.
So we gather to sin, not gather to hoard.
Yeah.
And I think we flip this thing upside down with church growth, where we've become so enamored with numbers that we've missed the whole process of what Jesus has called for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now our methodology and how we're following things becomes antithetical to the whole thing that Jesus is causing us to do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I'll just add this. So one thing, it has to be about the gospel being preached.
Has to be.
When it becomes about something else, that's when that hoarding spirit, that ego comes in. You know, you have 500 members, but how many people have you sent out? Right? You have 500 members, but if somebody leaves because God has called them and you won't release them, then they don't leave with your blessing.
Right.
And so then it becomes this great big issue.
Right.
And I just don't believe that's part of Jesus' plan for the
I
body
could
of Christ.
almost ask the question, why do you have 500 members?
Yeah, I mean,
and again,
we're not knocking
we're not right. I'm not knocking growth. I'm not knocking mega ministry. So, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around, like, out of the 500, how many have been developed to really walk out
absolutely
their assignment in the kingdom?
Absolutely.
And is the vision big enough for them to walk it out within there, or do they need a new path so that they can go?
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm gonna put that out there. I'm not knocking.
Yeah, we're not knocking, because again, as you grow, that's a blessing. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's about what you do with the growth.
Right.
That's what's important.
Right. So let me ask you this. So next week, it's the big launch for Replenish.
Yes, sir.
I'm excited about that. You guys are gonna knock it out the park. Matter of fact, I believe it's going to be so good, I might end up joining the church and they're going to be looking for a new pastor. But with that being said, and with us both working with nitrogen, understanding that our whole mindset is planting pregnant, what is your process? What are you thinking about as far as, like, what's your next step? Because as visionary, we're that's here. So we're on to the next thing. Are you thinking about what it looks like for your next leader, your next church that we're planning out of there?
Absolutely. And I think that's the growth, personal growth that I see I'm walking in now compared to maybe 10 years ago. Okay. Because, we get up there, we preach, teach, and, people will come, but are we developing people? Are lives being changed? Are they being discipled correctly? So where I am now is, I was telling my wife, like, yeah, we're at the launch, right? Okay. We're going to do that.
Right.
I'm not worried. I literally told, I'm not worried about that.
That's good.
We're going to do that. My concern is ahead now. How do we disciple the people that are coming? How do we get them into the life of the church? How do we get them to see who God is to them so that they can duplicate themselves? So then they become disciples and they disciple somebody else. And you're talking about church growth. You can have the best choir. You can be the best preacher, and it may bring a crowd, but will it change a crowd?
Come on.
And so what we see in the Bible, what Jesus did is that the disciples were changed. He said, "Come and follow me." And he told, listen, I'll make you fishers of men. I see what you're doing now, but I'm changing. I'm using what you already have, but I'm going to multiply it and change it. And so where I am, numbers are great. Now, we can't ignore the fact that numbers matter, but you can go to a restaurant and based off of somebody telling you should go, but will you come back? Right. Because once you get there, is the food good enough to make me come back? Come on. And so where we are, we want to make sure, right now, my mindset is, how do we set up discipleship? How do we train people? How do we get them into the life of the church so that they are a blessing to the kingdom of God?
Listen, man, as soon as you start talking about discipleship, I'm ready to run because, our mantra now in at the core church is like, we ain't dealing with members. Yeah. Because membership does not transform community. It doesn't,
Does not.
change the lives. Discipleship is what Jesus dealt with, and we want to follow that same blueprint. So we want to deal with disciples, because disciples cause revolution and change in community and just the whole territory where God placed it. So we come to the end. So I can't come to the end. One, it's a couple of things I need you to do.
All right.
One, I need you to give us some information about Replenish. I need you to talk about Replenish, brag on Replenish. But before you get to that, I need you to talk about, what do you foresee, like if we gather more urban church planners and they follow this process as you followed this process, how do you see the transformation change of church planting taking place in the urban community by following this pattern?
Yeah, well, it will encourage pastors to understand that you don't have to do this by yourself, right? And there's a benefit and there's a blessing with having a brotherhood or a community of believers, and also to be connected. There's a blessing to being connected. You don't have to be out here solo style. The days of the Lone Ranger are over.
Okay.
You cannot do this. And this is part of the reason why I believe you have pastors who are dying young.
Yeah.
Some are committing suicide because of the pressure and the weight of ministry. We haven't known each other that long, but we've known each other long enough that I know I can give you a call.
That's right.
Or you can call me.
That's
and
right.
Hey, man, I'm just checking on you.
That's
man.
it.
And it's good to know, like, even now, like, we don't have a physical building. And as we're preparing for launch, our praise team needed to get together and rehearse. But because of our connection to the mother church, that we are able to have a facility we can go in and rehearse and instruments and things of that nature.
That's right.
That's the blessing. And what happens when the churches are empowered, then they empower the community in which they're in. They change the socioeconomic perception of that particular community. And one thing that I've learned also early on, that when the church has a heart for the community, you never have to worry about your doors being closed.
Come on.
When you are meeting the needs of the community, you don't have to worry about your doors being closed. But if you're all about just what's going on inside the four walls, then your time is limited.
Come on. That's good.
So there's a blessing, pastors. Understand this. You don't have to do this by yourself. You don't have to leave and feel like you're leaving without the blessing. But when you're connected with an organization or a fellowship or a network, then there's a blessing being connected. And that even from one thing that I love, and I know we, over time, but one thing I love about even Nitrogen, that yes, I pastored, I have a 10-year of pastoring, I have history. But they said, listen, as we are preparing you for church planting, we're concerned about you personally. Let's do an assessment about where are you right now. Not only will we do a personal assessment, let's do an assessment with you and your wife. Let's see, are you strong enough? Should we pause this, or is your marriage strong enough to handle the weight that ultimately comes with ministry? And see, for the most part, I haven't seen that.
Right.
I wasn't a part of that.
Right.
And so to be able to get that benefit is a blessing, because it forced me to look at myself. It forced my wife and I, to look at our marriage, and then and also a spiritual assessment. What are you strong in?
Right.
Because just because you want to pastor, are you really strong at pastoring? Are you a teacher? Are you an evangelist? What is it? And so I think that's the benefit of a network that's not just going to put you out there, but going to make the assessment to make sure that you are positioned to operate in your strengths.
Before you brag about the Replenish, I can't stress enough about how critical it is with assessments. Assessments, I remember we had to do a 3-day boot camp, and we went to, I think somewhere in South Carolina, and me and my wife had to go, and we went through all this assessment process. And it really made me start questioning myself, like, whoa, maybe. And it's like, no, you passed with flying colors. And I was like, but it made me think, because it begins to expose some of the areas where there are opportunity for growth. And you can be strengthened at, or maybe you need to partner with so that they can pick up those weak spots. But assessments are critical, which I don't think we do enough because it's when church planting, because the only thing that we predicate in the past church planting was predicated on can you preach?
Can you preach?
And I promise you,
And that's such a small percentage of
that's
pastors.
just pastors. That's this much.
Yeah, just small.
This much. The health of your marriage is critical. So we'll talk more about that on our podcast with health and wellness and all of the good stuff. But yeah, share real quick about Replenish Church, what you guys are about. I think they got a feel for it, but go ahead and share.
Yeah, Replenish Church Charlotte. Our mantra is to revive, restore, and replenish lives through Jesus Christ. We just believe that no matter who you are, no matter what you come from, no matter what you face, we believe that God can restore and replenish you. God tells Jeremiah, he says that before you were formed in your mother womb, I knew you, which means that God had a plan for us even before we got here. And so we believe life, we go through some things in life. Life can break us down, whether it's in ministry, whether it's just through life, period. We want Replenish to be a place where we create a culture where you can come experience the presence of God. You can be revived, you can be restored, but also you can be released to do the work of God. And so that's where we are. We're launching January 26th at 3 o'clock and 5621 Flagstaff Drive in the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. And we are super excited. And we're just grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful for the process.
Yeah.
Again, one of the things that we did mention, people they get a word, they want to jump out there. And we submitted to the process.
Yeah, that's big.
We started this journey January of 24.
24.
And here we are. And some people won't submit to that. But it made sense for us to submit to the process so that we can be healthy. I told my wife the other day, she's 8 months pregnant, right? And so I said, I know that baby ready to come, but that baby has to do that time.
It has to do the time. That's right.
To be fully developed.
That's right.
And likewise, a church has to go through an incubation period that pastor has to, so that you can be fully prepared and developed for ministry.
I'll be preaching that next Sunday. Come see me at court. No, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Hey, listen, I want to thank you guys for joining us for this first inaugural podcast of Kicks and Kicking It. Listen, we're going to be here.
I should have had some better kicks, though.
No, man, I thought you was going to rock those kicks that you had when we was traveling, because I was loving those things, man.
Yeah, I got to keep up with him.
No. Don't backtrack. You keep going higher. No, but I love it, man. We're going to talk about all different topics. Kicks is just the smallest part of this thing. It's like the preaching.
Yeah.
The kicks is just the smallest part of it. But hey, man, we're gonna deal with topics, man. We're gonna be here. We're gonna laugh. We're gonna cry. Yeah. We're gonna get mad. We're gonna dive into some things that are necessary so that we can really change this whole wineskin of old church planting and get in the way where we begin to plant healthy churches.
Yes, sir.
We're going to talk about technology in church, social media in church. Listen, you're definitely going to want this. Finance in church, man. Yeah. How do we fund churches? Because the day and age of just tithe and offering may not be your story. So there's a lot coming down the line. I hope that you enjoy what you've heard. We thank God for my brother here. Thank God for Replenish Church, his beautiful wife and his beautiful family. Yeah. We're looking forward to celebrating on next week. Yeah. But man, just look for the next episode with Kicks and Kicking It, where we'll be talking about technology with our brother Tommy Nichols. Listen, there's a lot coming down the line. I'm so excited. I don't even know how to end, but we're going to end it right there. See you real soon.
Hey, I'm Pastor Antoine Headspeth.
And I'm Pastor Ebony Headspeth.
And I'm Asher Headspeth.
Hey, and we're excited about our church launch, Replenish Church Charlotte. We'll be launching January 26th at 3 p.m. We're going to be launching right here in the great city of Charlotte, North Carolina, 5621 Flagstaff Drive, Collingswood Language Academy. And we're excited about it.
Yes, we are definitely excited. So we're going to have prayer, we'll have worship, as well as the word. And so our guest worship leader, she is a phenomenal woman of God who will shift the atmosphere.
Yeah, her name is Kafia Rolliston. She is a Sunday's Best finalist and also one of my personal favorite gospel singers. So y'all come out and be restored, revived, and replenished through the word of God. Can't wait to see you.
Can't wait to see you. So don't just come by yourself. Bring a friend.
Bring somebody.
Bring your family. Come on.